Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Rachel and I am knitting. Not right now, but most of the time, and I have been knitting, so I'm going to tell you all about it. Today's video is episode 45 of my weekly podcast, which is a podcast series where I show you all the things that I've been working on with my knitting, spinning, etc. over the course of the week prior. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. Okay, let's get started. So as I said, today's video is episode 45. A horrible number, meaning every episode after this will just devolve into madness and chaos and just doom. All right, let's get started. So this episode covers, I should say, the afternoon of February 11th to the end of yesterday, February 16th. Today, the day of filming, is Monday, February 17th. Have you seen on Instagram well, I know some of you are on Instagram. Have you seen on the internet, maybe it's in other places as well, outside of Instagram, the app that has me in a chokehold, like these memes that January was so long and now February is halfway over, and we didn't even notice it happen? Whoa. Is that true or what? It definitely is for me. Feels like February has come and gone in the blink of an eye. I mean, it hasn't gone yet. Anyway, February is going by really, really quickly for me. Let me know if that's the case for you too, so I can feel some camaraderie and some, less isolation, So yes, we're over halfway through February. Let's get started. I have 4 projects to update you on. This is not all of the projects that are on my needles. I have many more projects than 4 on my needles. I'm a little overwhelmed by the amount of projects on my needles, but I need to remind myself that it's okay. This is the hobby I do for enjoyment. If I have 20 projects on my needles, the sun will continue to set and rise, and the world will continue to turn. But yes, I do feel a little overwhelmed with all of the things on my needles, mostly because I keep casting on new projects and not having the size needle tips that I need in order to move forward with the new project that is scratching my brain. So I'm at a crossroads. Do I buy more needle tips, or do I get my life together and tackle the mountain of projects that I have already started? I feel like for my own mental health, the latter is what I should do. But again, I'm just getting way ahead of myself. 4 projects to update you on today. We don't need to worry about the exhaustive list of the other projects I have on the needles, like my Fair Isle project. I said we don't need to worry about it, but now I'm going to give you an itemized list. My Fair Isle project bag, my alchemy pullover, what else do I have on the needles? I don't remember, but 4 that I worked on over the course of the last week that I'll update you on. The first of which is my Midland cardigan by Laura Penrose of, what is her handle? Penrose Knits, maybe? I'm not sure. But I couldn't put this down over the course of the last week. This, I don't know what it was. The squishiness of the garter, it's just knit stitches. There's literally no purling, at least not that I've gotten to. If you knit the sleeves in the round, there's purling, but I think I'm going to knit the sleeves flat. Knit the sleeves flat, and then I'll seam them together because I already have to seam the side, so I might as well seam the sleeves also. But I don't know, just getting into the zone of knit stitch after knit stitch after knit stitch. In fact, sometimes I purled on accident and I had to think back and fix it because I don't know, it's just so foreign to me to just do only knitting and no purling. But I have cast off the body. I think that it's going to be okay fit-wise. I do believe so. However, it's not as massively oversized as I was anticipating. I'm not on gauge, so this is to be expected that the sizing is not in line with the size and the pattern, but I think it'll be okay. So I'll seam the sides. I do have a button band to add, of course. That will add about 2 inches. And then I also need to pick up the hem ribbing. So I think what I need to do next is I need to block this, because in the pattern it says that it's recommended, and I know this to be true anyway, it's recommended to block the pieces that you're going to seam before you seam them, because blocking, of course, can influence the fabric and it might grow in some ways, stretch in other ways. So I don't want to seam it closed yet on these side seams before I block. So I need to block, and then I'll seam the sides, and then I will add the button band and the hem ribbing. However, because I am going to knit the sleeves flat, maybe I'll knit the sleeves before I block, because I really want to be able to take a picture of this and show you how it's constructed. Let me put a picture up here. Here it is, of what it looks like now when it's laying flat, and you can see what it looks like. The construction is just so cool because there's short row shaping on both sleeve caps, and then there's straight knitting, I believe, for a little strip, and then there's short row shaping on each front to make the V-neck shaping. And it's just very, very cool construction. I don't know how Laura Penrose figured this out. Maybe it came to her in a dream. To me, this is incredibly impressive. My brain doesn't work this way, where it can conceptualize this without being told the recipe to knit. So anyway, that's what it looks like. I'll put the picture down now that your minds have been blown. So yeah, so either my next step is to block this, or to knit the sleeves and then block. Because if I knit the sleeves, then I could seam the sleeves and the side seam in one seaming motion, in theory, yes? I'll think about it. I'll sit on it. I will ponder it in my heart. And yeah, but what an update. Am I right? The body is done, save for the button band and the hem, but that is some really good progress. I just could not put this down. This is what I reached for. This is what I worked on breaks during the workday. I just couldn't put it down. I loved it. Loved working on this, and I may make more. Who knows? Who knows? I may just be influenced now because it's so recently off my needles. Well, not officially off my needles, but you know what I mean. The yarn for this that I'm using is Clockwork Fiber Co. in the colorway Elusive Mermaid. And the base is Analog DK, which is a 100% non-superwash Shanico wool, American wool, if that's important to you. I cannot sing the praises of Sam's Analog line enough. I've used the Analog Worsted. I've used the Analog DK. I hope to one day be so privileged to use the Analog Fingering. I just love Shanico. I love, love, love working with Shanico. So there's an update on my Midland cardigan. Really, really good progress, and that took the bulk of my knitting energy over the course of the last week. Or maybe not energy, but just time. The time in that project was the most immense over the course of the last week. The second project to update you on, not as much progress, but a few rows here and there. I worked on my Margot cardigan by Rust Knitwear, Simone Ryan. It's in this beautiful, beautiful variegated gray from Treehouse Knits. The colorway is White Sands, and this is on her Dove DK base. So dynamic, and there's so much depth. Like, there's greens, there's creams, there's pinks, but they all come together to make this really just, I don't know, layered gray. So, in fact, I was annoyed that this wasn't done and off the needles this morning, because I thought, wow, this would be perfect to wear today, but obviously it has a long way to go to be done. And I think you know, in retrospect, you can look back and you can see why you do certain things. But I think part of why this was slow progress this week compared to my Midland is when I did pick this up, I would mess up the stitch pattern because on the Midland, it's just knit stitches. On this, you knit the right side row, and on the wrong side row, you do the broken rib pattern. So like my muscle memory was at odds with itself, and I kept messing this up and having to frog back or tink back. So I didn't reach for this one as much. Obviously, I reached for the Midland cardigan quite a bit. Yes. So there's the progress on the Margot. My next project that I have to update you on is a finished object. Where is it? Ah, it's a rat. This is Miss Tularosa Esquire. Do you like her? I haven't made a rat in a while. The last rat I made was this last summer of 2024, I do believe. Yeah, because I made one for my youngest niece, and then I made another one for my youngest nephew. So all of my nieces and nephews now have their own rat, and now I have another rat to add to my own personal rat pack. But yeah, this is Miss Tularosa. So named because she is knit up in the White Sands colorway, the same colorway as my Margot cardigan. And maybe on the rat version of White Sands, you can see a little bit more of what I'm talking about with the depth of this gray and how there's pinks poking through, there's variegation in the depth of the gray, like obviously we have some darker gray stripes, some lighter gray that's leaning to cream. But I'm really proud of this project because I spun the yarn. I spun the yarn that I made Miss Tula in. In fact, let me go get the leftovers. Stand by. Here it is. Look at this. Pretty. This is 100% non-superwash Cormo fiber that I spun on my Eco Fantasia spinning wheel. I showed you this last week. It was, I think, drying in the window. But I spun it and then I chain plied it. I don't know if chain plying is for me, but one of you very helpfully commented that when you're chain plying, you don't need as much twist in the singles. So maybe I'll try that, but probably not for a while because chain plying kind of hurts my feelings right now. But that's the story behind the yarn. I'll put a picture up here of what the White Sands fiber looked like so you can get an idea. And that fiber became the yarn that Miss Tula is made out of. She's named Miss Tularosa because White Sands National Park is located in Tularosa Basin, which Brandy of Long Dog Yarn told me. She helped me pick the name. So very happy with her. And actually, let me show you my bingo page in my Yarn Enthusiast journal from Knit California. My bingo page, I updated it this morning, and I'm doing a color coordinated like filling out of the boxes. So this is like a blue-gray kind of, like, well, not blue-gray, but anyway, this was the closest highlighter color that I could find. And look, basically with this project, I was able to fill in 4 different bingo boxes. And maybe I should have changed the rules in my mind that I made up for myself and only been able to fill out 1 box per project, but I just got so captivated and I kept filling them out. So with this project, this homespun rat, I started and finished a project in a day because on Saturday, I cast on my rat and I finished it on that same day, on Saturday. Or also with this project, I tried a fiber that was new to me, 100% non-superwash Cormo fiber. You like how I'm using the rat's nose as a pointer? Also, make something with yarn I spun. Dun da da da! I did that. And knit in public. I worked on this, well, I started this in a Starbucks and then later in like a public area downtown because DJ was running what was he running? A 10K? Yeah, a 10K, I believe. So I worked on this project in public and then finished it when we got home. Also, I filled in this box in green. I should have done it in pink or purple, actually, because it's associated with my Fair Isle project bag. But I learned a new technique with that project, which was casting on a provisional cast on with 2 different strands of yarn. So, anyway, very, very happy with this project. And the yarn is not perfect. Like in some places it's overspun, in some places, I don't know, maybe underspun. But something that I learned when I first worked up yarn I spun, I've only knit with yarn I spun twice. I've made one cowl with yarn that I made from my braid of Shetland superfine wool that I picked up in Lyric. I think Lyric. I pronounced it incorrectly and some people schooled me. And I care about correct pronunciation. So if I remember correctly, Lyric. Anyway, I've only knit with yarn I've spun twice so far. One cowl and then now this rat. And both times I've been so pleasantly surprised that yarn that seems too ropey or too imperfect or too just, I don't know, icky, if you're a perfectionist, once you start knitting with it, it's just yarn. It's just yarn. It knits great. So, not to say it's like the same type of yarn as a commercially produced or commercially milled or whatever yarn. It's not, but like, it's still yarn. It makes something just fine, just like any other yarn would. And actually, something that I really like about Miss Tula is there's this little bump, there's this little knot, maybe you can see it right here, of a curlicue. See it kind of bobbing around here? And this is a piece that's overspun and that did not get fixed in the plying process. See it poking out? It's like a little mole, basically, on this rat. And I don't know, it just feels nice. Feels nice. When I first moved here, I lived in a townhouse with a few roommates, and one of the chairs that we had in our living room had like a little plastic tag piece still on it, like from wherever my roommate bought it. And whenever, like, whoever got to sit in that chair, it was right at the base of the armrest. So if you had your arm on the armrest and your hand was resting down, you could just like mess with the little plastic tag, and it was just like a fun little fidget when we were sitting there watching TV. So that reminds me of that, and it makes me happy. It's like a fun little fidget on Miss Tula. Yeah. So there's the third project of the 4 that I have to update you on. I just think she's so cute. I'm so happy with her. So happy. This is also my first monochrome rat. I've never knit a rat with just one color. Usually I use a different color for the tail and for the toes and for the front of the ears, but just used one color here, and it's so cute and perfect. Like, the yarn just naturally gets lighter around her nose. Meant to be. Camry pointed that out in my Instagram DMs. Camry from Golden Hour Knitwear. Just love her. So cute. So she lives over here now next to my pothos, which actually is something I inherited from those same roommates that I was talking about earlier. So that's special. She watches over the pothos. Okay, let's talk about my 4th project, which I started Saturday evening. I was going to say I started it yesterday and really just impress you, but then I realized that was not true. So started this Saturday, and oh, I'm just so pleased with it. This is Fairy Winkle, which is a collaborative custom colorway between me and McKenna of Honey and Quill. That's my main color. So lightly variegated blues and purples. And then the contrast color is Wisteria, which is part of McKenna's colorway library. That's all. I think it's always available as dyed to order. I'm going to lose some stitches when I do this, but I'm not worried because this is 100% non-superwash Peruvian Highland wool. So I'm not going to really lose stitches. Oh, isn't this so pretty? This is, okay, this pattern is bean and olive grown up, or olive and bean grown up. I'm not sure which comes first, the olive or the bean, I'm not sure. But this was like a collab design that Andrea Mowry did with Lola Bean Yarn Co., Adela. So there's a kid's version and there's an adult version. I'm making the adult version because I'm making it for myself. And it's named this way because Lola Bean, like that's the nickname for Lola, Adela's daughter, and Olive is Andrea Mowry's daughter's name. So it's named after their daughters together, which is very sweet. And it has like these heart motifs. So up here, there's these smaller hearts, and then there's this zigzag motif, and then there will be larger hearts, and then another zigzag motif, and that's, I think, all the color work that there is, and then the rest is just this main color. I was kind of nervous when I first did. Who's emailing me? Etsy. I was worried when I was first doing the small color work motif, the first hearts, that it might be too low contrast. But as I kept going, oh my gosh, it's so perfect. Look at this. Whoa! Gorgeous. Beautiful. I am annoyed though, because here's what happened. I cast on with small circumference, size 8-inch cords with 3-inch needle tips. So that means I had a 14-inch circumference between the cord and the needle tips. So then, after I did my first row of increases on the yoke, I wanted to switch to larger circumference knitting needles. So I put the needle tips on, I think, a 22-inch cord, and then I just knit onto the new cord around until the small circumference needle had no more stitches on it. And then I kept knitting, and then only a row or two later did I realize when I started with the new cord, I put needle tips on it that were one size too small. I wanted to be using size 6s, but I had been knitting with size 5s. So I did frog back to where I had my mistake, but I think I didn't frog back quite enough. This line here that you can see around the entirety underneath these purple hearts is a line that I knit with size 5s. So it looks, I don't know. I really debated for the entirety of my knitting session yesterday if I should keep going or if I should frog, and obviously I kept going. I did try to steam block it a little bit, and I think the places that I steam blocked it is less noticeable. Like here, well, on the camera actually it's still incredibly noticeable. So I don't know if this is something I need to let go and practice, like, I don't know, humility and go with the flow, chillness, or if it's something that will continue to bother me. I mean, when I wear it, I don't know, I'm looking at it in the viewfinder and it's not super apparent. I think that it's not going to matter in the long run, and I'll just probably keep going, but I will always notice it when I look at it. Does it bother me? Maybe. I think it bothers me when I'm looking at it when I'm knitting and when I'm looking at it off of my body, but when I'm looking at it now, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. I don't know. I'll keep you posted. I am knitting, I think, the size 8. However, I didn't swatch, but the nice thing about this pattern is size 7 through 10. Does it go up through size 10? Either size 7 through 10 or just size 7 to the largest size. They all start the same, and there's no difference between them yet. So what I plan to do is just knit up until the first difference. I think maybe the next increase might be different, and then block it and then gauge it. Or I don't know, I might just keep going anyway. But yeah. Not sure what size I'm making yet, but I just love that there are chunks of sizes. They all start the same. The first set and then I think the middle set, and then the last set, there's uniformity. So you don't necessarily have to pick exactly your size right away, but you might have an educated guess of where your size might fall within the size sets, and then go with the size set you think will work. So that is really good progress. I'm really liking this Peruvian Highland wool, by the way, this non-superwash. It's really, really nice and sturdy and soft, but rustic. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this will be available. I don't know why I keep putting it down when I'm just picking it back up to show you, but this Fairywinkle color will be available on Saturday. This Saturday, February 22nd, from Honey and Quill. I'll put the link in the video description, and keep an eye out if you want a beautiful yarn that's lightly variegated, just the most beautiful blue-purple pastel. So pretty. So, so pretty. So there's the update on my Bean and Olive, or Olive and Bean Grown Up sweater, and thus ends my 4 knitting projects that I have to update you on. So let's move now into Spin Diary. Over the course of the last week, I have done a lot of spinning, but it hasn't been like it was when I spun my Koigu merino fiber. I was like in front of my spinning wheel for hours upon hours and days upon days. But this week, I've done a lot of spinning, but each spin has been like quick. Like, I spun my Cormo braid into a skein in less than 24 hours. And I spun another braid into a skein. Let me show you this. I'm so proud of this skein. Here it is. Had to get it off my yarn wall. Look at this. Oh my goodness. I learned so much with this spin. This is from Dicentra Designs. And I picked this up during the Rose City Yarn Crawl. I got this, oh, what store did I get this at? I forget which one. It was one of the smaller ones, and it was in Northeast Portland. It was not across the river. It wasn't Weird Sisters. It wasn't Naughty Lamb. It wasn't Ritual Dyes or the one next to Ritual Dyes. Which one? What is it called? I don't remember. But, yeah, that's where I got it. This nameless store, I can't remember. It's the one where, well, it's the one where parking was hard and it's on a hill. Do you know it? Anyway, this is a 50% merino, 25% bamboo, and 25% tussa silk in the colorway Very Berry. And I got this because it looked like a fuchsia flower, purple and red. And just look at the skein. I'm so, so proud of this. So something that I learned with this spin is spinning thin is really not the mountaintop of skill or desirability for spinning. Like, it's wonderful. It's great. I hope to continue to practice spinning thin, and more so spinning thin consistently. But this is not a thin spin. I spun comparatively quite thick to my Koigu skeins, but I spun much more consistently. And I think that this is my best spin yet, if I'm comparing it to like commercially produced yarns. I think that this looks most like a skein you might buy in a store. I mean, of course, it's not a one-for-one comparison, but this is the closest that I've gotten, and I'm really, really proud of this. I'm thinking that I will make a little scarf, the Simple Thing, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. It's essentially the Sophie scarf or the Sophie shawl, but for free. So I'm thinking that will be what I do, but I'm just so, so proud of this spin. And also, I spun this in a day, like in less than 24 hours, this became a skein of yarn from a braid of fiber. Who knew that was possible? So I got my Cormo spun up, I got my braid from the Rose City Yarn Crawl spun up, and I have some fiber on my wheel right now. I don't want to take another shot later and cut it in. So I'm just going to show you. Behold my wheel. This is a mess. The fiber on here is very overspun. It's thick, it's thin. I'm learning. I don't know what fiber this is. It is from Kromsky. Kromsky gave me a bunch of fiber when they sent my wheel. And I remember thinking that it was merino, but I don't remember why I think that. Like, is that just what their catalog has? So then I put 2 and 2 together? Maybe. But they sent me 3 bags stuffed with fiber. And in this bag, this is the bag that oh yeah, this is why. It's felting fiber. It's 100% Polish merino. Wow. Do I have a bad memory or what? So 100% Polish merino Valentine felting pack. So there's 2 reds on my bobbin right now. Basically in the pack, each color is a little chunk of fiber. So I spun up the first red, and then now I'm adding in this more orange red. And I guess my thought process was I would spin a bobbin of each of these bags in order. Like, I wouldn't mix the colors up. I would just spin one color and then the next color and then the next color and then the next color. And then I thought it would be fun to ply them together. So I guess initially I was thinking a 3-ply because I would do a bobbin per bag. I don't know if I'm going to stick to that plan because when I spun that first red onto the bobbin, oh my gosh, it was rough. Like, big learning curve with this fiber. So I don't know, maybe this bag will be my practice bag. But anyway, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm not spinning thin, spinning quite thick actually in many spots on that bobbin. But yeah, that's the update on my spin diary. And actually the reason that I'm spinning this yarn is because it was easily accessible in my calyx behind me, my craft cubbies. Most of my braids are in the craft closet in a bin, which is not impossible to get to, but it takes a little bit more fortitude, and I don't always have that in me. So I grabbed the fiber that was easily accessible, and I just started spinning yesterday. So I'll get some spinning done today, and I'll continue working on that through the week. And then once I get through these bags, I'll have no choice but to get into my craft bins. Actually, that might not be true because I have some fiber coming to me from Brianna from Little Wolf Knits, and I think Rapunzel Fiber Arts is sending me a bat. So I have more fiber coming. We'll see if I beat them to the punch with getting fiber on my wheel. Just depends how fast I finish this Kromsky wool and how badly I'm itching to continue spinning. But yeah. So I don't have any acquisitions this week to share with you, which means we'll go next into the Q&A section of the podcast. I've selected 3 questions this week. As a reminder, if you ever have a question for me about knitting, about spinning, about a hot take, I don't know, whatever you want to know, you can fill out the Google form in the video description, and I'm hoping to get to a few questions during each podcast. So let's get started. The first question is, why did you destash your Sorella? This, I'm assuming, is in response to me mentioning that I destashed most of my Sorella in one of my Vlogmas episodes. And the answer, as with many questions, is layered, and there's lots of different factors. Like, I used to have a ton of Sorella yarn in my personal yarn collection, and that was for a lot of reasons. I loved the colors, I loved the bases, but also I had a parasocial relationship with Ashley. And you know, everyone has a parasocial relationship with someone. I'm convinced of this. But like, I don't know, I just, it came to a point where I'm like, I do not need all this yarn. I don't need all this yarn. And I still have way too much yarn. I have more yarn than I need, certainly more yarn than I need. Sometimes more yarn than I want because I get overwhelmed with my stash. I don't think this is a moral failure. I just think it is, you know, true to my experience. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed with my stash. Other times I revel in it. I think this is just the ebb and flow of being alive. Anyway, I got to a point where I was very overwhelmed. My style had changed. My preferences had changed. So I offloaded a lot of the yarn. Sorella is a high value yarn. The resale value is, I think, quite high compared to other yarns that you might try to destash. Sorella holds its value. So when I was looking at yarn that I didn't have a plan to work with or wasn't sparking interest for me, Sorella was one that I would often reach for to destash because I would get my money back in a higher proportion than if I destashed a different yarn, and because it just wasn't sparking joy for me. Like, I think this was probably, it predates me really diving headfirst into the color purple, but certainly the yarns that I had acquired and accumulated from Sorella were no longer things that I pictured myself wearing. Also, I think the final push for me to destash, or maybe I already did this, but I really don't like the model of reimbursement for anti-fat tax discounts. I think that, I mean, this is a whole other conversation that I could go on and on and on about, and I'm sure many of you could too. But basically, if you're not familiar, there's this thing that many indie dyers do called an anti-fat tax or a size-inclusive discount, which is basically, the spirit of it is to combat the fact that if you are a plus-size maker, you have a larger upfront cost for handmade garments because you have to buy more yarn, sometimes double the amount of yarn than a straight size or a smaller size maker would need to purchase in order to make the same pattern. So many businesses, yarn dyers, have implemented the anti-fat tax. I believe Cesium Yarn, Cat and Penny Strickland started this. One of the reasons I'm so proud to have collaborated with them for the Cabin Collection and the Clench Your Butts and Ask for What You Want collaboration. I love working with them. I love their values. Anyway, it is basically a discount that is used on an honor system where plus-size makers can get discounts on the yarn they purchase if they are purchasing for a garment of a certain size or larger. Some dyers have this system set up where you pay full price for the skeins and then you email them and say you're a plus size maker and you ask for the discount to be sent to you via reimbursement for the yarn that you've purchased. And I mean, I really bristle at this, I think partly because academia traumatized me, and reimbursement systems are not equitable. They are not, I just don't think they're the way. And it really rubs me the wrong way to have that be the way, like something that's supposed to be inclusive is distributed. I feel like it's your business, do what you want, run it how you want, but if you're doing something that is meant to be in the spirit of inclusivity but is inherently behind a barrier, that just to me doesn't make sense, and it really makes the hair on my back stand up in like a angry kind of way. So anyway, all that to say, I don't have much Sorella in my stash anymore. This is my choice for me. If you love Sorella, you exclusively use Sorella, I'm so happy for you. I think you should use yarn that makes you happy and that you like. For me, it's not scratching my brain right now, but I do have a very prized skein of yarn from Sorella still in my stash. It has survived multiple destashes. I actually purchased this from a destash from Helen of Knits and Pups. This is the original vintage flannel recipe from way back when they were still handmade home fibers. It is on the classic sock base from way back when, which is 100% superwash merino, 400 yards, 2-ply. If you know me, you know typically I don't really like 2-ply, but this vintage flannel is like, this is what is the phrase? This is like the white whale of hand-dyed yarn to me, or the Lost Ark or something. I don't know. It's amazing. I love it. I'm so happy that I have it in my collection. I don't know if I'll ever knit it up because it seems so special to me. But anyway, that's the long-winded answer to say that's why I destashed all my Sorella. Will I ever use Sorella again? Yeah, probably. Will I ever buy Sorella again? Yeah, probably. Am I doing that right now? No, not really. There's your answer. Okay, question number 2. What do you do with leftover yarn or scraps? Let me show you. Right now, I collect them in bags. I put them in bags because I save them up to give to Hedgehog Fibers. Hedgehog Fibers has this really cool recycling program, which is the way they make their Tweety yarn, which is like yarn with colorful Tweety bits, which the Tweety bits are made from yarn recycling donations. So you can send in your yarn scraps or unwanted skeins to Hedgehog Fibers, and based on the weight that you send in, they will email you a corresponding coupon code. You can get up to 30% off on Hedgehog Fibers. The only requirements are you send in like plain yarn, like it can't be something that's knit up. You have to unravel it, and it can't have any bug or insect damage or activity. So I put them in bags, I save them up, and then I give them to Hedgehog Yarns. I did this in 2023 when we visited on the Irish knitting tour. I wasn't able to do this last year in 2024 just because things piled up and overwhelmed me. But many people on the 2024 Irish knitting tour brought bags and then shipped from Dublin to Hedgehog Fibers headquarters in Cork, and then they got their coupon code emailed to them. So I plan to do that for this year, to bring these scraps with me to Dublin. Also, if you don't want to do that and you want to work them up, I have worked them up before. Like I made this little zipper pouch. This is actually, funny enough, with leftover Sorella yarn. I made this little zipper pouch. I keep my pads and tampons in them in my purse. So, yeah, I used to, you may hate me for saying this, I used to treat my yarn scraps like they were like spun of gold, and like every centimeter counted and I needed to use it up. But I learned that really, that was just like a big load to take on. So for my peace of mind, I really like this system of putting it away in a bag and saving it for a higher purpose. So that's what I do with yarn scraps right now. Okay, let's go to the final question for today. When and how did you and Leslie meet, and how did you two become best friends? Please tell us a bit about your friendship story if you want. I would love to tell you. Okay, so if you don't know, Leslie and I are best friends. Leslie is Knit California here on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and I'm me, Rachel. So I followed Leslie when I first, was actively using my Rachel is Knitting Instagram account, and I admired her so much, and her content was so good, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be an influencer just like Leslie. I want to grow my account and have a following like her. She's amazing. But what our first entry point of friendship is I messaged her because she had been posting sit and knit with me reels or Tunisian crochet reels where the point of view was looking down at her project as she was working on them. And at the time, and still now, I was so insecure about my hands and my fingers, which is actually hilarious to bring up because I haven't apologized for my manicure, and I don't plan to because I'm working on not apologizing for existing. But this is really stressing me out, my messed up fingernails. Anyway, I messaged her and I was like, I want to do this. I want to make content of knitting, but I'm so scared to show my hands and my fingers because, like, you know, sometimes I have cracked skin. Sometimes I have, I don't know, like my nails don't look good. And she was like, be brave, do it, you can do it. And she like hyped me up, and then I started making more content, and I was braver, and I wasn't afraid to make content that had my hands in it. And yeah, so then the rest is history there. The first time that we met in person was in Dublin in front of Powers Court Townhouse. Powers Court Townhouse, where This Is Knit is housed, Dublin's local yarn store. That's the first time we met in person. And in fact, on the last knitting tour in 2024, people got a kick out of the fact that we had only like been in person together 3 times. The 2023 Irish Knitting Tour, the Rose City Yarn Crawl, and the 2024 Irish Knitting Tour. Those are the only 3 instances where we have been sharing the same air. But like when she messaged me in 2023 and she said, I'm going on your knitting tour, I was like, yes! Like I was hoping she would come because like we have this, we click, we're friends, but we're not like, I don't know, does she want to be my friend as much as I want to be her friend? And then she said she was coming on the tour and I was like, yes, we're in. This is cemented. We are gonna be besties. And that's what happened. We have weekly knit nights. We chat all the time. We talk about our project plans. There's no way that I could make YouTube videos or Instagram reels or like deal with all of the things that go along with that if I didn't have someone who was so supportive of me and who was living the same experience as Leslie. It means a lot to me. And like, I don't know, putting yourself out there on the internet might, I don't know, not seem difficult, but there's a lot of energy and labor that goes into it. So I don't know, I think we just built our friendship through going through the same thing simultaneously and being like a sounding board for each other and cheerleaders and commiserators, depending on what is happening at any given time. So that's kind of how we've built our friendship, and I'm just so thankful. I'm just so thankful to have her. So Leslie, if you're watching this, thanks for being my friend. And also, if you are not Leslie and you're watching this, which most of you are not going to be Leslie because she's only one person, internet friends are real friends, and your knitting circle, your knitting community is out there. It's right here in this video. I'm so glad you're here. And I don't know, put yourself out there. Your friends are out there. If you want to find friends, we're waiting for you, you know? So that's kind of how that all happened. And yeah, what else to add? I don't think much, but what a great question. Thank you so much for asking that, whoever you are. The questions are anonymous, so you could be mean to me in theory, but no one has been, which I do surely appreciate. Okay, that's all for the Q&A section. Let's move now to announcements. The Treehouse Knits Traveling the World collection, which is what my Margot cardigan is knit up in, the White Sands colorway, and what Miss Tula Rosa is knit up in, spun and knit up in. That's available for pre-order right now, today. It should be open until the 22nd or the 23rd, I'm not sure. It should be open until this weekend. There's a bunch of other colors besides White Sands. There's some really, really beautiful blues and greens and other variegateds. So definitely go check out the Treehouse Knits Traveling the World collection if you haven't already. I have my affiliate link in the video description. And then also Fairywinkle, my collaborative colorway with McKenna of Honey and Quill, will be available this Saturday on February 22nd. So I'll put the link to McKenna's Etsy shop in the video description as well. So be sure to check that out if you have any interest in the most beautiful, lightly variegated pastel blue purple periwinkle named Fairywinkle in the entire world. Dun da da da! Yes. All right, so that's it for announcements. That's it for the episode. I've gone over my knitting projects. I've gone over my spin diary. I've told you a few answers to your questions, and that's all. I hope that you're having the best day ever. If not, do something to turn it around. Take a nap, have a drink of water. I know you're not drinking enough water. I'm not drinking enough water either. So we can all work on that together. But that's all I have for this video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and hit that notification bell to be notified of my next upload. Last but not least, head over to Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok and follow me at Rachel is Knitting if you don't already. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.